Ian, have UK estate agents got their head in the sand in 2019? Talk to me.
Well, I think agents still have a hunt and kill mentality, and they've had that for forever and a day.
Well, it goes
And
back to the old 1980s days with the Pru.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
No sell, no fee.
Exactly, but we're in a completely different environment now.
What's changed?
Well, I think you need to have, rather than just focusing on the short game, you need to be thinking of the long game.
What does that look like?
I think that looks that you're not just worrying about where your next sale's coming from.
Because it's interesting. You ring up estate agents and they say, how's it going? You said we've had a good week because they've sold two houses or listed two houses. Or
Yeah,
do you think that's too short term?
absolutely.
Okay, so what are we talking? What, a month, 90 days?
No, I think you need to be, every business should have at least a 5-year plan, and they should have that broken down into bite-sized chunks that everyone in their organisation knows, and it becomes a mantra within that business. And if you have a path for growth that your teams know, then you're going to get growth from that business, even in a challenging market that you have today.
It's interesting. I've come to the conclusion that you know the staff in your businesses are there for today to make sure that everything's going okay. But you, as the leader of the business, need to be looking 5, 10 years ahead and seeing what's on the horizon.
Yeah.
And yes, your staff might think you're absolutely daft because everything's sunny and warm and the sea isn't choppy, but there could be an iceberg ahead. And it's the estate agency bosses. Why do you think estate agents, or is it just more of a human thing that we don't think long term?
I think a lot of that can be down to the leadership.
Okay.
That if they come up through the ranks, sometimes they get into senior roles, but they're not actually the best managers and best directors that they could be. And I think your point is really valid. That when you ask a director, oh, how are things, the really ones that are on the money are talking in the future. They're not talking right now.
Because let's be frank, you've gone through the ranks of negotiator, being all the way up to MD of Humberts. Why do some valuers make poor managers? Why do some managers make poor area managers? And why do some area managers make poor directors? Why is that?
Because I would say that over the years, I wouldn't say I was the best estate agent. I've worked with better estate agents. But what made me good at going up through the ranks was that I was able to think strategically. And I think the best people from within agents that are progressing well are those that can see beyond get their head out of the sand and look beyond the horizon.
Is that a skill that can be learnt?
A lot of it can be down to the training.
Were you trained well to move up the ranks?
Really well trained. I was with a chartered surveying practice to start with. Then I worked with Royal Alliance, which was really good training, and I've worked with some really talented leaders.
Because let's be frank, apart from Countrywide and Hart, training is not very good in the estate agency at the moment.
No, it's not, and I think it's often overlooked. And indeed, when pound, shilling, and pence are tight, what's the first thing that gets cut? It's training, isn't it? And I think it should be the last thing that should be cut, because it's the investment in people that makes sure that you don't just have somebody who's picking up a phone on your front desk. You have somebody who's going to create business.
It's interesting. I know an awful lot of trainers out there, and a lot of people said that money was cut from training in 07, 08 when we had the credit crunch, and never really returned back.
No, and it's a massive issue that 08 saw a huge cut off in staff when we had the financial crisis, and the industry really hasn't replenished its resource stock, if you like. And even if you look in a lot of agencies, they're understaffed. They're outsourcing stuff, some of the stuff that could be outsourced. But what they need to be doing is making sure that they've got sufficient staff to provide quality of service, and that they're trained, and that they're not just there picking up a phone and
being robotic,
reacting.
right?
You don't want order takers.
No, I mean, to be honest with you, it sounds like the things are coming home to roost.
Yeah.
10 years later, we're 10 or 11 years after the credit crunch, and we're going through another. Let's be frank, 2019 is a tough market, isn't it? And I think we've had an awful lot of estate agents, in the sweetie shop. Let's be frank, you know, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 2015, they were great years, weren't they?
Yeah.
You could, it was low hanging fruit.
Yeah.
Now you've got to work for your money.
Yeah. And now the guys
What's
who,
the answer?
well, I think the answer is the guys who know their onions and who are investing in their businesses are prospering at the moment, even in this challenging market, because they're stealing market share.
The pie's got smaller, but you just
Yeah.
take a bigger part of the pie.
And you make sure that you take advantage of your database, that you do all the basics really well, and that you make sure that you become that local expert that people want to use.
I mean, let me give you some shocking stats. We had Andy from Yomdale on, who does the mystery
He had a nice
shopping.
shirt on, actually.
Yes, he did, didn't he? And he said he does all the mystery shopping for the EA Masters. So they basically do 2 phone calls and 2 emails, I think, to every single estate agent. And 52% of emails on Rightmove did have no response, and 10% of phone calls. I also had Boyd from the Sales Doctor, and he did a, how can I say this nicely? You know, the automated valuation models, the instant 30 valuations. I won't mention the name of the firm, but he, for one of the bigger ones, he did some mystery shopping, and 38%, and he sent asking for a free valuation request, and 38% of people never came back to him.
That's shocking, isn't it?
No wonder these estate agency businesses up the creek without a paddle. If you can't take that stuff, we're all moaning about Rightmove.
But then what I see that as, Chris, though, is it's an opportunity.
Of course it is.
Because you think, right, well, if others are doing that, then there's all of that business that a good agent can pick up on.
But then it needs training of the staff to ensure that.
Yeah, and a lot of that, and then it comes full circle, because I think a lot of the stuff that probably you and I learned back in the day, it's still relevant now, but I don't think the staff that have coming through that have started in the last 3 or 4 years have been trained that way.
I tell you what, I've noted a few. I've heard with Arla, and because I know you're going to be the National Association of Estate Agency President in a couple of years' time, so well done on that one.
Thank you.
And we'll talk about that. But I tell you what I love about what you guys are doing, and I know you've only doing this in a trial format, is you've been getting one member from each town in a little focus group, where you get the agents together and share ideas and accountability with each other. And the feedback I've heard has been absolutely amazing. Because let's be frank, running your own business is a lonely old game, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And you know, Property Mark are we're trialing the Inspire.
That's the one, yeah.
Mark Inspire.
So you know what I'm talking about. Of course, you're the.
And it's fantastic.
It's amazing.
And it's you know, that's where Property Mark adds value for the industry. But for members to do that, you know, it's a lonely old game when you're ploughing a furrow of trying to flog houses, and you rarely look beyond the trenches that you can.
If you don't mind me saying, I didn't know it was called Inspire, but I knew the system.
Yeah.
The amount of love and feedback I'm getting from it is amazing. And if you can, you know, as long as you're not sat next to someone in your own town, that probably means you have to have a number of Inspire groups in a county, sharing ideas, and and then having accountability at the end. That's where the magic happens with strategy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
And what's the value? And I still think you're too cheap anyway, but we'll do that in another video. Cheers. Thanks very much. Cheers.
Chris.